just always felt, okay, we're in a bad spot right now. It's going to all work out. And I ended up getting a coaching job in late 2010, my last high school coaching job, actually. And I did some lessons out of that field and got some travel ball going. So kind of like was able to kind of make ends meet for a little bit for a couple of years there, and kind of started getting things back on my feet a little bit. So it was tough, but I kind of just never gave up on the idea of like, hey, you can do this. This is going to work out. I don't know how, but eventually it will.
Joining me next, my guest here, he has experience in coaching all the way from Little League all the way up to Major League Baseball. And he's also got an incredible story, and we'll get to hear about a little bit of that today. Coach Lisle, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
So before we get to talking about how I found out about you and a little bit of your story, let's start with, what did sports look like for you when you were a little kid?
Oh man, I was all about it. Everything. Just getting home and playing outside until the lights came on. So I played every sport that was available to me and wanted to play them. So I mean, I was a baseball kid. I was like, that was number one. But two-hand touch football and basketball. I lettered in 4 sports in high school. So I just loved everything. I loved playing everything. And as a young kid, just whatever was available to me, I wanted to play it. And that was kind of my life.
I know that baseball is obviously your thing, and that's what is where you're at right now. But did you stand out in any other sports as far as, like, did you think you might go professional in anything else other than making baseball a career for you?
Growing up, like being a Major League Baseball player was like the only choice. Like I had like no plan B, if that makes sense. But I ended up being a better football player in high school than I did baseball. I just was really fortunate and had a good high school career. And so I had a couple offers out of high school for football. Navy was one of them. I was too young. I mean, I'm not too young, I guess too immature to really kind of see that was like a good idea for me. And my other choice was Fresno State, where my grandfather had played. And I grew up a big diehard Fresno State fan. It was kind of the time where they were really getting things going pretty well. And so I took an offer from there. And so my plan kind of shifted maybe my junior year of high school. Like, oh, hey, football is this thing. I knew I would never go pro. I just love, at that point in my life, I loved football so much. I loved playing it so much. Friday Night Lights and all that good stuff. So I was just really into it. And baseball was kind of a little bit secondary at the time, just because of the success I had and just kind of fueled a little fire and love in me.
So let's skip ahead now a little bit to 2010, right? What was it like for you when you hit your low point? Like, what were you thinking in your head? What were you going through?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I think everyone has different, things that happen, different stories and things. And, I would say most of my adversity in my life is pretty self-inflicted. I mean, just young, dumb choices and things. And so, in that point in my life, I just I gotten divorced and I was trying to make this coaching thing work and trying to like coach hustle. So I was like, I'm doing travel ball and camps and lessons, and travel ball didn't really pay any money back then. Now I'm sure it probably does, but I was doing everything possible to kind of grind on, all that stuff. And so for me, I wasn't having a lot of success with it. And, I had a couple kids and trying to do the single dad thing, all of those things, things were just not working out really well. And so this bill started stacking up, and I was trying to figure a way out, and didn't. So it was rough, man. It was a very hard time, because for me, I felt like my calling, my passion was coaching, and I wanted to coach, and I thought I was good at it, and all those things. And so it's like, man, this is not working out. Like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Should I just get a real job? All of those things. And so there was a part of me that's just like, hey, I just didn't want to give up on that dream. So, there were a few months in there. Yeah. I had to, lived out of my car. I slept in a Safeway grocery store, and I had gotten food stamps at the time, which it's like a couple hundred, maybe $300 a month I would get in food stamps. I go to Safeway and I eat some canned tuna in my car, and so there was definitely some tough places and darkness back during that time. I think I think what was funny looking back at it is that maybe I was naive or something else, but like to me, it always seemed temporary. It always seemed like, hey, this is just a bump in the road. This is not the end of the road. This is not my story. Does that make sense? So like,
Yep.
um, I just always felt, okay, this is it. We're in a bad spot right now. It's going to all work out. And I ended up getting a coaching job in late 2010, my last high school coaching job, actually. And I did some lessons out of that field and got some travel ball going. So kind of like was able to kind of make ends meet for a little bit and for a couple of years there and kind of started getting things back on my feet a little bit. So it was tough, but I just, again, like I kind of just never gave up on the idea of like, hey, you can do this. This is going to work out. I don't know how, but eventually it will.
So you mentioned it being temporary, like that was your thought process, and then obviously you never gave up on it. I see all the stuff you post on social media. You post a lot of good, like I hate to use the word motivational quote because I really I don't feel like you're a motivational guy. I feel like you're just saying stuff that's like real and like it really needs to be said. Do you feel like that message though carries over from you talking about how like you just never gave up and this was temporary? Do you present that to the kids that you coach now? Like whatever is going through your life right now, it's temporary.
Yeah. So I know we talk a lot. So I took my 8-year-old son on his very first 9 holes of golf yesterday, and I would say, like many 8-year-olds, I would say he's the most competitive kid. I mean, he's a little literal clone of myself, and he's the most competitive 8-year-old on the planet. It feels like. And like I know he doesn't deal with adversity very well. Like, and so, and golf is probably the worst sport for that. And so, I spent a lot of my time talking to him through that round, and just even my own players, just like, you know, you have to be able to deal with adversity. Whether and baseball and softball is definitely is up there with golf in the sense of like how often adversity and failure happens in the realm of things. So I just spend a lot of time of like, hey, you've got to understand that like adversity is going to happen, and how we can't really control a lot of those things, but we can control how we respond to those things. And I just, from experience, my own experience, I've been down to the bottom a couple of times, and it's like, okay, this is going to happen. There's like you're going to have hard things that happen, in your life, and deaths and relationships broken, and friendships. All these things can happen, and like, how do you respond to it? How do you grow through it? It's just looking through that lens. And so I do spend a lot of my time talking with our athletes about like how they respond to adversity and how quickly can they recover from it, because in a lot of sports we don't have time to sulk. We don't have time to like get down in the deeps of sadness. We've got to be able to like recover quickly.
So you mentioned earlier about living out of your car a couple of times, and then obviously you're trying to grow this coaching thing, and you end up at some point coaching in Major League Baseball, right? Is there
Yeah.
anything about that like seems surreal to you? Like along the journey, is there something that you still like just can't believe that this actually happened?
Yeah, I will tell you, man. I grew up, like I said, no one loved baseball more than me did. I would keep score of games on TV with a scorebook of Major League games like 6 years old. I can like F7, stolen. I mean, I can't explain like how much I loved the game growing up. And then to me, being a Major League Baseball player, I mean, astronaut was on the table for a little while, but Major League Baseball player was like that was the only option. Even BMX. Pro racer at one point wasn't something, but that was the only thing. And so, you know, in my senior year of high school, I had my daughter, who's going to be 29 years old now, and like that kind of derailed everything in a lot of sense of my life. Like I had to get a job and grow up a little bit, and like all these dreams kind of got backburnered in a lot of ways. And so, uh, coaching kind of reignited that. And when I coached high school for the first several years of my career, my dreams were like be a PE teacher and coach high school baseball, and like that was it. And that was fine. Like I think there's a lot of people like that's a great dream. That's fine. And that was my dream. I had no idea that like the people I've met and the progressions, and the next thing you know, and like more and more jobs, and the ladders climb so quickly and crazy. And I'll tell you, man, going into my first day of spring training, into the locker room with your nameplate and your jersey hanging in the locker. I mean, it's my first day, so I'm trying to be cool and play it cool. But I'm like, my eyes are welling up. It's like it was this kind of like a conversation in my head to myself of like my 4-year-old self, my 10-year-old self, like, dude, yep. 41 years into this thing, you did it. Like you got here. And so for me, Yeah, like I said, the surreal, wild, emotional, like all those things. Because again, at 18 years old, when you decide, 19 years old, you're like, hey, this dream's over, and this is all you've thought about your entire life, and it's taken away. And now you got to get a real job and all the things. And so I think when I walked into that locker room, and I said, I've been able to work with a lot of MLB All Stars, and there's a lot of things that to this day, I have conversations with my wife all the time. Like, I can't believe that's real, or I can't believe this happened, or I got to do this thing. And I always joke about my 10-year-old self would never believe like these things that I was able to do. And so, yes, and for me, I think having that, I don't know about attitude of gratitude, but also like this perspective of like, this is so beyond your wildest dreams, kind of, and recognizing like, hey, and holding on to that and cherishing it and being grateful for it, definitely has helped, because it can go away in a minute as well. So
how much does your age play into it as far as like what your thoughts are? So so you're older, you find yourself into Major League Baseball, right? And obviously there's a famous movie, The Rookie, and you know that whole thing, and how, he gets a start way older. But like, and I've covered sports, and I've been in locker rooms. Did the athletes care? Like, did anybody care that you were older? Like, did that matter?
no, it's funny. I mean, I said my story is just so wild. It's so weird that like I built this huge following of like 1 million followers on social media, and I was sharing this hitting stuff. So like my first MLB client was Daniel Descalso, and sadly I'd never heard of him. And he was an everyday infielder in major leagues. And he reached out to me, followed me on Twitter, and then Jock Peterson and Mitch Haniger and these more and more and more guys. And so for me, there was a time the year before in spring training when I visited the Arizona Diamondbacks locker room in spring training, and about half the room was like, "Oh, Coach Lisle, I follow you. I love your stuff." And I was just like blown away. So from an athlete standpoint, no, I think most of the players there, if they're on social media, or if they're doing, I mean, nowadays it's so different, even in 7 years later. But 10 years ago, social media wise, most of the players knew who I was through videos or another MLB player. It's a small community. For me, it was more about the coaches. I would say the average coaching staff member, in most of these locker rooms is between 50 and 70 years old. They're mostly older guys. There's some younger guys, but it's an older generation. And like, none of those guys knew who I was. And if they ever searched for me, they were like, "Oh, is he a softball coach?" I mean, it was just like, he never played pro ball. He's a high school coach. Like, it was. So I think it was more for the coaches of shock of like, what is this guy doing here and working with our hitters? The players I had no problem with from a buy-in standpoint. A lot of them knew who I was to some level, and I had a little bit of respect from them.
So coaching at every level, what's the principle that's never changed, whether it's from youth or all the way up to Major League Baseball? What do you think a coaching principle is, just it continues to exist?
The first thing that comes to my mind is relationship. Like, I really think that in order for me to tell you what to do as an athlete or a player, especially at the highest level where they're making, and I work with guys who are making $6 to $20 million a year, you have to be like very credible in what you say. So it's just not the information; it's actually like they have to believe that you care about their outcome and not just your outcome. And so for me, whether I'm coaching 10-year-olds or 30-year-olds, like, I think they have to actually trust you in the sense that what you're saying has their best interest in mind. And that doesn't happen by just like talking or telling them what to do. You actually have to invest in relationship, show them that you care, show them how invested you are, all of those things. And a lot of that has to do with like relationship outside the cages or off the field, and, things, checking in with them and having conversations. How's life? Mom, dad, all those things. I think that has to be, it can't be just a transactional thing. It has to be transformational. It has to be relational. And I think a lot of coaches have a hard time with that. They don't really, and I'll tell you, you asked about the older and younger, in my 30s, my younger 30s, when I was a coach, and I was a head coach at 24 years old. And so in my early 30s, when I was a college head coach and a high school head coach at times, I mean, I was terrible at, I was good at relationship, but I was terrible at empathy and like putting myself in the athlete's shoes, understanding that was like, I'm the head coach. I'm telling you what to do. You should just do it. Not realizing that there's just so much more to that. And I think as I matured, I really learned a lot about the emotional intelligence aspect of it and the empathy part of it. And I think became a much better coach as I started learning those things versus just like being really good at strategy or something else. So I think, like I said, to me, the first thing that comes to mind is relationship. It's got to be very relational. It's got to be trustworthy, because what happens is athletes all the time, they struggle. You tell them what to do and it's not working out. They have a choice to make. They can say, I don't like this. This doesn't work. I'm out. I'm going to go back to my other or someone else or my old way. I think if you have a good relationship with the hitter, I've got a major league guy even last year. I like had to call him out. I'm like, dude, I've been with you for several years. I'm telling you the truth. Like, I know you're struggling, but I'm telling you. And so, I have the ability to do that because I have several years of relationship with him versus if I was just some random coach of his that didn't really care, he's going to go, well, I'm just going to do it my way.
One of the things that I come across doing this podcast is I always notice how there's like these athletes that end up like hating the game because of how they were pushed. Right. And I have kids, and I'm at that moment, like we're a big hockey family, but I always try to like emphasize to the kids, like I want them to do what they want. Like I don't want to push them towards something. So when you're coaching out there, how do you try to push a kid towards excellent, but also keep in mind that you don't want them to hate what you're teaching them?
Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays what I've learned is that you can really push kids a lot nowadays if you gamify things and make them, and so, nowadays we have so much data and things that we can track, especially in baseball and softball, but like in general, competitions and gamifying things, to me is the secret unlock code with a lot of these kids. And so even with my own kids, I realize like my 8-year-old son, we go to the driving range by our house, and that driving range has like a TrackMan thing where it tracks the flight of the ball in the distance. Well, inside that little computer thing by the thing, it has Go Fish and it has Angry Birds. And he'll hit balls for over an hour, hour and a half. But just adding that little element where he gets to see, how far he hit it. And if you knock down a house with Angry Birds, like and so he's getting both sides. So for me, I just think that you can't, if I'm coaching a hockey team, we just can't do drills and drills and drills and we're, all this stuff. And it's got to be, okay, how can we make this fun and, and accomplish what we're trying to accomplish? And so for me, I always tell other coaches, like, let's trick them with drills. Let's trick them into doing what we want them to do by getting them interested and passionate about the thing in a way that they want to do it. And so, like I said, my 13-year-old son, he's so far deep into Fortnite, it's not even funny. And so, finding ways to, again, like to gamify a thing, a Survivor type style or Fortnite version of a drill. I mean, like where someone gets knocked out, there's all kinds of ways obviously people can do, but like, to me, that would be the way that I would push kids into loving the sport and loving the thing. And at times you still have to have conversations of like, hey, we need to focus. We got to get this thing done, work on it. But I think when we measure it, when we keep score of it, when we do it in the right way, it keeps them engaged. It keeps them interested in doing it. And and I think the hard part is, I think coaches buy into the trap a lot of time of like consequences for like not paying attention or not doing this. And we're going to make them run. Like, to me, what I have learned, even with the younger kids, is like, and I think people scoff or laugh at like the timeout philosophy, but like what I've learned, especially coaching in high school, even athletes want attention, whether sometimes it's good attention or bad attention. They want the coach's attention. And a lot of times it's bad attention, right? They're acting out, this and that. So I will literally just go, hey, go sit on the bench for 5 minutes and I'll come back and I'll let you know when you come back in. And like in the moment of it, you're probably thinking, oh, they're that's fine. They're getting out of like the drill. They're not, but like, if you can make your practices really fun, really competitive and all these things, when they are getting a timeout, they are like missing out on the thing, right? And so if you can make that thing worth missing out on, you can say like, hey, bud, you're not, you're goofing around, you're not paying attention, you're not interested. Cool. Go sit down for 5 minutes. I'll let you know. We come back in. And like, so for me, I've just learned, instead of like yelling at them or like, oh, you're going to go run or do this conditioning problem, whatever it is, to me, again, we're going to try to make this this practice, these drills, everything fun, competitive, and you want to be a part of it. And so if you are going to act out or not be motivated or not be interested, then hey, take a break and we're going to go have fun without you and try to create that environment. I think is better and easier than again, like well, everyone's going to run because of Jimmy's goofing off or whatever the consequence driven thing. Then you walk away going, kids walk away going, oh man, that practice sucked because coach was mad and we made us do all these drill conditionings. Like, okay, was that really helpful to the team?
What do you think is something that parents often misunderstand or don't get about like their kids' journey through sports that you wish that they would know, like you wish they would realize?
Man, that's tough. I would just say the two things that come to my mind when you say that. One is like the passion for the game has to be driven by them, by the athlete and the kid. And so many times is the parent pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. And like the rule we have in my house is you don't have to play a sport or a specific sport like at all, but you have to like do something, whether it's like play the piano. You got to be about something outside of a screen, so you can't say like Fortnite is your passion. And so for me it's like, okay, I would rather find like my son, my 13-year-old son, he plays soccer and lacrosse, two sports I had never played at all, and I played every sport that's possible. I'm all for it. Like if he's going to be pumped about that, cool. He never really gravitated towards baseball. He played a little bit. It was fun, but like he likes soccer better. He really likes lacrosse. So I'm like, I'm gonna try to stoke that fire as much as I can. My daughter's into volleyball right now. Never played that. So like I'm all for it. It doesn't have to be the sports that I like. And I think parents just get so wrapped up in like what they want their kids to do and want them to be that they push them. And it's like I need that kid to be that fire to be stoked and that passion from them. And the second thing is just understanding like, sure, I would love my kid to get a scholarship and do all the things, but like I've coached at the major league level. I've coached D1, the Pac-12. I've coached in the SEC. I've coached NAIA, every level you have had. And I'm at the highest level. These athletes are not they're not just good players. These are like the best players. If there's 1,000 players in your town, they're number one. Like they're the best player around. And so like you can have lofty dreams, like, and I'm all for it. Parents, you want your kid to play Division I and go to the pros, awesome. Help them like stoke that fire. But having the expectation of that and having an expectation they're going to make this team or they're going to be a starting varsity shortstop as a freshman, like whatever, you got to take all those things off the table. So I think parents' expectations versus like hopes and dreams is so different, and I think that parents really miss the mark when they're like, I think my son's going to do this or my daughter's going to do this. It's like, how about you just get them to love the game, play it as long as they can, be passionate about it, and let's just see where the chips fall. And if they end up getting to play in college at all, whatever that level is, that's a win, and that would be awesome. And to me, if a parent was tried to measure their success as a parent in regards to sports, it would be how long did my kid play the sports for versus how high the level went. That would be great. Again, it'd be great to go at high level, but I would rather my kid play till he was 20 years old and something he loved and go to play college somewhere than quit at 13 because the car rides home with dad were so brutal or mom pushed me so much that I'm like, I'm out, I quit. And they stopped playing at 13 or 14. And that to me, that I would rather measure it that way.
Well, it's one of those things too. Like I've thought about like the last couple of years is like starting to like learn to live in the moment. Right. And if you're trying to think about like a scholarship or think about 10 years down the road, you're not living in the moment with your kid. So it's just like, you're not,
100%.
Yeah, you're not there with them. One more question before we go to rapid fire. What's the most memorable moment to you as far as emotional it goes for you coaching, whether it's on the field or off the field?
So in 2018, when I coached at the University of South Carolina, we were like number seven in the country going into the regionals, and we actually ended up getting upset by Hofstra or Liberty or someone, and we had to kind of claw our way back in the losers bracket. And we go to play Hofstra, and I would say, to preface that, maybe 4 or 5 months earlier, our first baseman, her dad was killed in a car accident. and he was a young guy. He was my age at the time, maybe early 40s, and he was the dad. He drove 14 hours to every game. He was the nicest guy ever, and it was brutal. And I got to go to the hospital and say goodbye to him before they pulled the plug. I mean, it was rough. It was everything you could imagine. It was horrible, horrible. And his daughter had like 2 home runs all year, and she was a great kid. And we go into Hofstra, and we're down 5-4 in the seventh inning with 2 outs and nobody on, and like our season's over. And I was sitting on the bucket, sitting there going like, all right. I started practicing my end of year speech. Like, hey, it was a great season, man. We were number 7 in the country, 40 something wins. Like, it just, I was literally crafting what I wanted to say at the end of the game. And we had a freshman named Jana. She got to the bat. She walked. Now we have a tie run at first, and Kristen comes up. And I kind of like looked up and I said, hey, Buck, if you're listening, we could use you right here. And the next pitch, Kristen hit a 2-run walk-off home run that sent us to super regionals. I mean, people were all, tears are crying. I mean, it was I every once in a while I go back and watch it on ESPN because it was that. I mean, it was so incredible emotionally. Like there has never been anything like that. And we're all jumping up and down and crying and hugging each other. And we got to go to super regionals. I mean, it was like nothing you could ever imagine in the sense of emotion. So that's number one in the sense of the most emotional, memorable moment of my career.
A little rapid fire for you. What's a drill that is an all time for you? It works no matter if you're in Little League or if you're in Major League Baseball.
Oh man, that's a good one. I would say for most of my hitters, from a hitting standpoint, the number one drill that we do is a drill that what I would call like the crossover drill, and it's where the front foot is keeping them over and keeping players in good posture. I think that's one that we use all the time.
Do you have a quote or mantra that you live by?
I would say the mantra I live by is love the process. Like I think a lot of people trust the process, but I think you have to actually love it to get where you want to go.
What's the most underrated skill in youth sports?
I think passion, like literally loving the game, and like someone who's willing to go out and dive for everything and give all their effort. Like effort, I really do think at the youth level is number one. Like someone who can say they out hustled everybody. I have a trophy, little league at 1 year somewhere that says Charlie Hustle. That was like my nickname because I just hustle everywhere.
Favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? I go back and forth on this, but I'm gonna have to say Field of Dreams.
Oh, that's a good one. And then the last one, if you were playing Major League Baseball right now, what would be your walk-up song?
Ah, oh man, that's a good one. To me, I'm more of like an irony guy, so like the Sesame Street theme song or Baby Shark, something that my kids would like make fun of me for,
Yeah.
and people outside be like, "This is lame," but like I prefer comedy when it comes to a walk up song versus like swag and toughness. I would rather people like laugh, and so like I said, like the Sesame Street theme song or like Baby Shark or something like that would be something I would choose.